I'm going to introduce you real quick.
Yeah, sure.
It's our pleasure to introduce our next presenter, Sonia Gray. She's the Executive Director for Exploited Children's Help Organization, ECHO, and she's going to do a presentation on CyberSafety 101, Exploited Children's Help Organization. Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, let me make sure I have my clicker. Is the clicker not working? Not getting anywhere. Not getting anywhere. Yeah. We'll go to the next slide.
May have to do this then.
Okay, all right,
Okay.
got it. All right. All right, can everyone hear me okay? Oh, I'm gonna try that one more time. I'm gonna start with good morning. Can everyone hear me okay? All right, I got a thumbs up over here. Yes, all right. Okay, I'm a little wild and crazy, all right? So just work with me. My name is Sonia Gray, and I'm the Executive Director of ECHO. We have been in existence for over 40 years due to a tragic incident that happened to a 12-year-old girl in Louisville over by Bashford Manor Mall. She went riding her bike to go visit her friend, and unfortunately, she was never found. Who in this room would know that little girl's name? I see somebody shaking their head over here. No one? Okay. Her name was Ann Gottlieb. And so that happened back in 1983, and that is how we evolved as an organization. So before I actually jump into this, I want to know, what do you want to know about cyber safety and kids? Don't leave me up here talking by myself, okay? That's one of my rules. What do you want to know? You don't want to know anything? You got it all? You know how to talk to your kids about it and apps? Okay, well, I'm done, right? I see a hand back here. Yes. Okay. Keeping them safe when they get solicited pictures. Yep. Gotcha. Thank you. She the only one that wants to know something about the internet? Are you all smarter than your kids on the internet? Yes, no, like give me some reactions here. Yes, Ashley.
Someone from the online wants to know, what age is appropriate for kids to join social media?
Oh, age and social media. Got it. And yes, and I'm gonna go to this last one and we're gonna jump in. Yes, ma'am.
I just want to know, what are the new trends that's happening?
Oh, the new trends. Okay. New trends. All right. Well, hopefully I can answer all of these for you all. So let's get started. And one of the things about my presentation, I am not one that just likes to, give you a lot of information. I may ask you questions and I need you to respond to me. So don't leave me talking by myself. I also want to make sure to mention that I have both my staff members here. So this is the full staff of ECHO. We're all here today. And just a little bit about my staff. They are wonderful, wonderful females. And in this past year, what we do as an organization is that we partner with public and private schools, and we go into the classroom and we talk to the kids and talk to the kids about body safety and internet safety. And in the last fiscal year, my staff trained over 6,100 students at JCPS. Okay, I'm gonna clap for you all because that's a lot of kids, and then we also were able to train over 1,500 adults and then disseminate information about child abuse prevention to over about 6,500 adults. So you can tell, even with a small staff, we're small, we're mighty, and we're everywhere. And I also want to say a special thank you to Ashley for inviting me here, that I just found out because I wonder how I got here, but nevertheless. So our mission, since 1983, has been dedicated to preventing and reducing the incident and impact of child abuse by providing education, advocacy, and support services to children and families of Metro Louisville and surrounding areas. Now, ECHO is very unique. How many nonprofits do you think that are in Louisville? I love a lot, but give me a number. Somebody just shout out a number. You all are quiet. I'm sorry. Am I waking you all up? Give me a number. 400. Let's go a little bit higher. 676. Higher than that? 731. Okay. 2000. Okay, Ashley's getting the closest. So there are about over 3,500 nonprofits in Louisville. And so that's what makes us very unique. We are one of the only nonprofits that does what we do in the metro area. So some of your topics of discussion today that we are going to talk together is going to be, how do we even start the conversation with your kids? Many times you have presenters, it's like, you need to do this, you need to do this. And you sit there and you're like, okay, where do I even get started? I'm going to help you with that. We want to make sure that we're creating safe environments. I'm also going to show you what warning signs and digital dangers look like. Some rules for chatting online, digital footprinting, cyberbullying, and then also the Kentucky statutes and resources. So one of the things that my staff did is that they passed out this nice little guide for you all. This is going to have a lot of information. And then we also have a new guide out in partnership with Face It and CoSare for Kids that we just developed this past summer, because I realized that we as adults, we are really behind our kids in technology, and specifically in this digital space with internet. And so I went to our community partners and I said, hey, I'm really realizing that a lot of our adults are really having some challenges of just even terminology. What terms do we need to know? What are some of the safeguards that you can sit down and actually talk to your kiddos about? So what does the internet and social media know about you? So I am a walker and talker, so it's going to be hard for me to stay here in my place. But let me, ma'am, you in the pink shirt, what do you think social media knows about you?
Probably everything.
Everything? What are some of the apps that you're on?
Instagram, Twitter.
Instagram, Twitter. Okay, gotcha. Sir, what about you? What do you think the internet knows about you?
As much as you tell it.
As much as you tell it. I love that. And you're exactly right. So one of the things that we talk to our kids about is that what you put out there stays out there. Let me be very clear. I know a lot of kids that say, oh, I marked it private. Please understand, nothing is completely private, ever. And I'm going to give you a couple of tips and hints. Partially, that's why we don't never have kids in this class, because they don't like me, because I give you all the tips. But the internet, we can find out your full name, your email addresses, phone numbers, every post, picture. We know all of that because it's all out there, and it's all what we call digital footprinting. And I'll go a little bit more deeper into that. And then we also can see everyone that you've ever tagged or posted. And I'm going to talk about kind of twofold, how we talk to our kids about internet safety, but also making you all kind of realize and put you like, oh, yeah, I did do that type of thing. All right. So talking to your kids about the internet. The thing of it is, when I came into ECHO, I've been there almost 7 years. When I first came to ECHO, we started our program in first grade. And I was like, okay, why first grade? I didn't really get a good answer. So I said, well, we're going to drop it down to pre-K. Does anyone know why I made that decision?
Us younger kids, they're digital kids.
Absolutely. Our kids have grown up in this digital space, but what is happening is that we have many adults that are putting devices in our kids' hands younger and younger and younger, even as young as 2. Have you all seen that? Yeah, You know, like mom's doing something and the little 2-year-old is just doing this all the time. Well, that's partially why we need to have conversation and dialogue, because the internet is not the new babysitter. Actually, it's not a great babysitter at all if we're not monitoring. So we want to start a dialogue with our children at an early age so that we can build the trust. How many of you all have kiddos in here? Okay. How many of y'all have tried to take their phone away? What was the behavior? It wasn't good, was it? It's like a breathing device for them, you know. So one of the things that I encourage is not as far as consequences. If you want to take phones away, that's perfectly fine. But also know that you're probably going to have a whole nother issue that you're going to have to deal with because they are very connected to their phones. So think about other consequences without taking their phones away. Once again, it helps to build trust. What we say to kids is that the biggest risk of the internet to children are themselves. Partially because they do a lot of reactive things, right? They don't think things out. It's just like, I'm going to do this, and then whatever happens, happens. So once again, this is why we need to have conversations. So if you have younger kids, just like when we're talking to them about manners, we need to talk about manners in this internet space. Are you being a good upstander? Are you being a bystander? Are you just watching everything that happens? And if it's something that is not in the most positive light and it's negative, are you just kind of sitting back? Or are you one of the people that is creating that activity? So we want to talk about manners. We also want to talk about what is and what is not appropriate. Y'all had an elementary student that basically told us that he needed his social security number. Nobody's shaking that. That don't seem funny to you all. Elementary for social security number. Primarily because he's trying to get on some type of app and I guess trying to calculate his age to make sure that he could get on there. But we also want to talk about giving away their names and their addresses and anything that's going to be personal information. Also pops up and passwords, not trusting people that you meet online. We have a high percentage of children in Kentucky that are being trafficked. And a lot of that activity starts right here in this digital space. So once again, when we're talking to our kids, what we call them are digital strangers. What's your name, please? Leah. Leah, if you had a kid and your kid was like, you know what, Mom, I want to go next door, and you have no idea who they are you going to send your kid out there? Absolutely not. So it's the same thing in this digital space. We don't want to send our kids or allow our kids to be in spaces where they don't know who these people are. And then also never giving out the personal information. Don't click. Now, when we're talking to older kids, there's going to be higher consequences for them. We're going to talk about sexting. Somebody mentioned sexting. I'm going to get into that. And that is the inappropriate of exchanges of photos. Cyberbullying, meeting in person, there's that again, meeting in person, sharing and liking or inappropriate information, and doxing, online grooming, and entering contests and taking quizzes. And I know someone's going to ask me, what is doxing, right? Yes, I knew that. And so doxing is when you're searching for and publish or any identifying information of an individual, and it's all out in the internet world. And it's a malicious intent to criticize someone else or a business organization or whatever that may be. Following me so far? All right. Am I scaring you? All right. Okay. Not just yet. All right. I'll get to it. So when we're talking to our kids about the internet, one of the things I know, I had an older gentleman, and he was talking about his grandchildren, and he's like, I just wish they didn't even have these phones. Well, it's not going to go away. It's here, and it's here to stay. And the internet can have a lot of positivity. But once again, with our kids, we want to make sure that they also know kind of like what are those loopholes that they may not see. A lot of times I said that kids make reactive decisions. How old are you when your brain's fully formed? 25. So if we have a 10-year-old that is posting something on the internet and we're like, oh my God, why would you do that? Remember, they don't have the cognitive reasoning to be like, oh, if I do this, then something else is going to happen, and something else and something else. Nope, they just do it. That's why we're in the classrooms first. So to start your conversation, some of the questions that you can ask, you all are in a training today. You can go to some of your kids and say, have you ever heard about sexting, sextortion, digital footprinting? They love to share with us because you know why? It makes us look like we're not intelligent, right? And they're like, oh, I can tell you all about that. The one thing that I always say is when you ask the question, allow the child to speak from their perspective. Many times, what will happen is that when kids start talking with us, we take over the conversation. And then we miss all the valuable little pieces that they're dropping for us. You can also start the conversation with, what do you think about? Allow the child to share their knowledge. Once again, with all of the civil unrest and everything that's been happening in our state in the past 2 years, you have to know that our kids have been impacted by this as well, because what I always talk about is influences. When I grew up, didn't have the internet. And I remember like watching TV at night at my granny's, and about 12 o'clock, that's when that little flag came up, the national anthem. Am I the only one? Oh, okay. I was like, am I the only one? And then it went snow, right? And it was like, oh, that's it. No more for the night. I don't know what you're gonna do. Well, right, there you go. So think about, in today's world, we are connected 24/7. Our kids are connected 24/7. They're always receiving influences from different directions, whether it be friends or whether it's going to be Snapchat or it's stuff that they got to do in school. So they're always receiving this, and sometimes they just don't know how to materialize it and understand what's right and what's wrong. We can also ask them, does blank ever talk about it? And you want to choose someone that your child trusts and will listen to. So if there's something that really has happened, let's say within the family or something that's on TV, this is where we really need to talk about our kids, because what we're also seeing and noticing is that because of the influences from the internet, it's also affecting our kids' mental well-being as well. So we have many kids that will they love having likes, right? So 200 likes, 500 likes, but if they lose 1 or 2, they are torn apart. They don't know why I lost my one friend out of the 500. So we have also seen where this is also affecting their mental well-being. And then you can also say, I've heard blank happen to someone. How did it make you feel? Now we're tapping into empathy, and I'll go down into that a little bit more about some warning signs. And then lastly, we should always kind of close out a conversation with, if anything ever happened, you can always talk to me. We know in our work is that over 90% of children that are abused by someone they know and trust. Of that, 30% tends to be family member, someone very close. What is also happening now, as I mentioned, is that we're seeing an uptick of a lot of kids that are online talking to digital strangers. In this past school year, we had about 3 or 4 elementary schools to call us because kids were sending around nude photos. Yeah, I'm just like, I don't know if that really hit you all, but this is elementary kids talking to strangers and sharing nude photos of themselves and sharing with their other peers. So we had to go back into the classroom and re-educate some of those kiddos. The other thing that we are also seeing is that we have a lot of kids that are talking to digital strangers online, and they're meeting them. Last summer, we had a case with an organization in Louisville where we had I think it was about 5 or 6 between 14, 15 Hispanic girls that went missing, all in a block of a time. Very similar reactions. We looked at their internet wording, very similar. Fortunately enough, majority of those children were found. Now, one of the other things that we are also creating at ECHO is a missing kid initiative along with the state. We know that there's over about 300 kids that are missing in our own state here. So once again, this is why we need to have these conversations. So one of the things that, yes, yeah.
That is being used higher than the other ones, like TikTok, it's big. But like, there's TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, Snapchat, Thread, like,
Yeah.
is it more TikTok nowadays?
So right now we see a lot of activity through TikTok and Snapchat. But one of the things that I want to share is that in this digital space, it's very fast moving. Very fast moving. Actually, we have a binder, a 3-inch ring binder that is talking about nothing but apps and behaviors and manners on the internet. Every time that we really dive into something that we just found out about, then the kids are already on to something else. So that's why we have to have, let me say this, we can't have a conversation just one time. It has to be over and over and over. Does that answer your question? So right now, TikTok and Snapchat is still kind of like the highest percentage for kids, but there are some other ones that are in that underbelly of it too.
Yeah, because you said there's this last 2 years, with, like TikTok being so big,
Yes.
which can't stand TikTok. Like, I know a lot of like teenagers use it, and then it's huge because of the amount of attention.
So the thing of it is that I love that you said teenagers are using it. So something else that we found out through our kids is that, how many of y'all have Facebook? Raise your hands. Okay. All right. What we found out and what our kids tell us is Facebook is for old people. So I'm sorry. I didn't want to call you old. They did. But Facebook is for old people. What we have seen in the past year is we have seen elementary kids that are more on TikTok and Snapchat and all of those types of things, which once again, you should, there's a certain age that you're supposed to be on these platforms. So what is happening? They're smart, so they're figuring out how to put the age in there. Or think about if I have an older sibling or a cousin or something like that, it's very shareable. But thank you for that. I love that. So one of the things that we need to make sure that we are doing is creating safe environments for our kids. And once, as I mentioned, these are things that we should not be sharing online. These are the things that we should be talking to our kids that you should never share online, which is their real name. Why is that? Because if I type in Ariel Powell, I'm going to pull up a whole lot of information. Well, not a whole lot, okay? I'll pull up some information about Ariel Powell. From her name, I can possibly be able to find her home address. If you're posting anything Facebook about schools and clubs and places where they visit regularly, or names and family members, date of birth, telephone numbers, all of this is traceable. That's why we say do not put it out there. And some of the potential problems that we have seen because our kids are behind these devices so much, either they're doing this, bending down a lot, or they're viewing something, you know, for a long period of time. So one of the recommendations is limit the amount of screen time that kids have, because we're seeing that, first of all, it's creating distractions. They can't pay attention. Or what's happening is because in the digital space, everything is so instant, they don't have the patience to wait. Self-esteem, we've seen self-esteem go up, go down. Cyberbullying is a really, really big challenge that our school system is dealing with. And when they call us, I always say, did you look at your social media page? Because kids have no sense of privacy. They drop everything. They tell you everything. We just got to go look for it. It's created a lot of isolation. Once again, I grew up in Danville, Kentucky, and I remember being young and just someone throw your hand and be like, yes. But I remember when I was young in the summer times, it's like, get outside, just get outside and play, go play. Part of that is so that you can, you know, get to know other people, know how to do conflict resolution. How do we become a team player? Well, now we're finding a lot of kids are being isolated behind these screens, which goes into having undeveloped social skills. Have you all ever tried to talk to kids here lately and you're like, what? Like, I'm trying to decode what you're saying. They talk a lot of jargon as well. And then empathy. And I'll hit a little bit more on empathy as well, but vision and hearing problems, and also neck and joint issues. So what are some of the rules for chatting online, Sonia? Because I knew you all was going to ask me, right? So one of the rules is for you all, when you're working with your kids, grandkids, whomever it may be, try to only use sites that you know are safe. Now, remember, I said things are ever moving ever changing. If you are ever wanting to know about any type of app, movie, there is a resource called commonsensemedia.org. I don't see no one writing that down, but I'll say it again later on because it's going to be a great resource for you all, especially if it's a game and you're like, let's say when you got a grandchild and during the holidays, it's like, oh, Papa, I want this game. And you're like, okay, don't you want to kind of know what the game is? And if it's violent, if it's age appropriate? Well, commonsensemedia.org will share all those platforms for you to give you the age, to give you the recommendation. And it also will do it for movies as well. Never log into websites using an account from a social media website. Anything that you do in this digital space, we can pull something, what we call panhandles. We can pull panhandles, put it in a search, and then we can pull up some additional information. Never agree to take a conversation somewhere else or accept online challenges. So what I am meaning by this is that specifically if you have middle school to elementary, I would really try to make sure that any digital device is in an area that is high traffic, where at any time you can walk by and see what they're doing. Teenagers, if they're in their bedrooms, once again, and I hope this video plays, but teenagers, when they start shutting those doors, that's a telltale sign for you to walk in because it's something that they don't want you to see. And once again, they do not know all of the dangers on the other side. We want to talk to our kids about being suspicious. Not everybody online tells the truth. Predators, of course, don't tell the truth. They are always looking for ways to be able to, what we call, cultivate relationships. And so there's a grooming process that perpetrators will actually step by step by step by step. And then pretty much the last step is, let's meet or show me something. And then that goes into sextortion, which I'll talk about that. And then make sure that we always let kids know and help them to identify safe adults. We always say at least 2 safe adults. Why? Why would you say 2 and not just 1? Somebody, yes.
One's more comfortable with one, maybe talking to what the issue is.
One may be more comfortable talking about the issue. Somebody else had a comment. Who else?
I just said one may not be available at the time.
One may not be available at the time. Love that. What if one of the safe adults, and please don't shoot me down, but what if one of the safe adults is a professional? We've seen that in the news a lot. Coaches, teachers. So we want to make sure that kids know how to identify at least 2. And then the other part of it is that what if that first adult doesn't take it seriously? So we always tell the kids that you keep talking to someone until someone lets you know that they hear you. Kids don't make this up. So if a kid comes to you and they disclose any type of information about any abuse, digital abuse, please tell them that you believe them and that you will handle it from the adult's perspective. So someone asked me about sexting. So basically sexting, has anyone heard of this term? Who has not heard of this term? So everybody's heard of this term? Wonderful. So sexting is just basically the sharing of nude photos. Because most teens are not legally adults, teens who sex images of underage people face serious legal consequences. This is what we are seeing the most right now. Elementary age. Elementary age. So I have been talking with some of my community partners in policies because the one thing that we do not want to happen is have a lot of kids on the sex offenders list when they're 10 because they're sharing nude photos because once again, their brain hasn't fully developed. So they had no idea, I'm just doing this because Johnny or Becky told me to do it. And now there's a real consequence because here in Kentucky, teen sexting is still child pornography. This is in your book as well, all these statutes. Also, the main thing that I want you to know is that felonies can be issued to teens as young as 12. So you see where I'm going with this? Like, this is a real issue that we're having with our younger kids, and we have laws, but we don't want 12-year-olds on sex offenders list. Any questions so far?
Never thought of that.
Never thought of it? Yes, yes.
And you might be getting into this, so say your child does receive an unsolicited photo,
Mm-hmm.
what is the best way to handle that or have been handle that? Because unfortunately, I've had friends whose child did not handle it in the correct way and ended up the criminal process
Mm-hmm.
being pursued on
Mm-hmm.
him.
So,
They accidentally downloaded it.
So, couple of things. If it is on your kid's phone, the very first thing is that you do not want to share or distribute it any other place. What I would do is, if you are able to save that, or if you can take a snapshot of that, and then you want to turn that into the police, because once again, if someone is sending inappropriate photos to children, that's against the law. And so we want to find out who is that person. Because the thing about perpetrators that you all probably know is that perpetrators don't focus just on one child. They have files and files and files and files of kids. So if they are approaching one, they're approaching many. And so we want to get that main person off of that site. And so one of the sites that you can actually visit is through the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, and it is called takeitdown.org. And it's all through their system. And I'll go a little bit more into that too, but that's a great question.
Do you talk to, when you do these classes, do you talk to these teens about, like, what if it's a friend? What if it was, what if it's somebody engaging in cyberbullying that sends this unsolicited pic? Like, what are my next steps?
Absolutely.
What do I not do?
Yep. Yes, we do. And once again, that's why we're in the classroom first. So we talk about all of the precautionary methods. We also talk about the reaction pieces as well, sharing photos, talking about being an upstander. Even with the high schools, we talk about their personal brand because they may want to go to college or get a job. And I know, like, when I do my hiring, I go on people's social media page and see, like, what are they doing type of thing. So we talk to our kids all about that. We've had many kids that will also, what I would say, be upstanders, and they will actually report to administration. So I'm not going to go over all this, but I do love statistics, and probably the main one that I want you to look at is the one that says 71%. Who are the victims? 71% of cases involve only victims under the age of 18. That is startling. So we've mentioned cyberbullying a little bit, and I'm going to go a little bit more into this because one of our largest stakeholders, community stakeholders, is Jefferson County Public Schools. And so I guess about 3 years ago, we seen an uptick in cyberbullying. And, once again, I said, when I was growing up, grew up in a small town, and of course there was bullying that was going on, but the shelf life of bullying did not stay that long. Maybe 1 or 2 weeks, and then it fizzled out because something else had risen to the top. Well, if you think about cyberbullying and the use of the electronic communication, I can hit one button and I can send whatever I want to send about anybody to a plethora of people. I can send it to 10 people. I can send it to 100 people. I can send it to 200 people just like that. And the shelf life, it stays and stays and stays because it never goes away. I also had an incident where it was a high schooler. She had done some inappropriate things on Snapchat. Got a phone call, the mother, and she said, "We've already dealt with this." This was the second time. She thought because I did Snapchat, it goes away. Nobody else will ever see it. Well, it recycled. And so she had the whole issue and problem all over again. So we had to create a safety plan for the kid and for her mom. Because if you can imagine inappropriate photos being distributed all throughout your school, what mental capacity that's going to have on you. But when we're talking about cyberbullying, once again, we want to check our children's device. You'll hear me say time and time again, we need to monitor, we need to communicate. Monitoring is not breaking privacy, especially if you paid for the phone, right? You all pay for the phone, so it's not breaking privacy. We also want to make sure that if a particular online group is upsetting a child, that we ask them to get off that site, delete the site, remove the site, and then also tell an adult so that we can handle it from there. If the problem is an image or a message, then we want to delete it if possible and or report it. The big statistic that I want you to know from here is that 60% of kids between 12 suffered from cyberbullying. So that's over 50%. And as I mentioned, their mental capacity. So we also have a lesson that also talks about just your mental well-being operating in these digital spaces. So what are some of the warning signs that a kiddo may be cyberbullied? Noticeable increases or decreases in the device usage. If a child exhibits emotional responses, laughter, anger, or if they're upset, a child hides their screen or the device and they don't want anyone else to see it. That's a telltale sign. Social media accounts are shut down and new ones start to appear. So they're shutting them down and then they're getting another one. And a child that starts to avoid social situations, even the ones that they used to enjoy. So if it's like a school function and let's say your kiddo loved going to the football games or the basketball games and all of a sudden they're like, no, I don't want to do that. It's great to say okay because you may not want to transport them, but the second part of it is ask them why. Why? What's happening? Is someone, did something happen at school in this digital space? Is someone bullying you? Like, we need to have these types of conversations. And if you find that a child becomes withdrawn or depressed or loses interest in people and activities. So we talked about sexting. Who has heard sextortion? Okay, who has not heard of sextortion? All right, who said they heard of sextortion? Give me your definition of that, please.
Sextortion is basically whenever someone gets some type of evidence, usually photographs, videos, or whatever, of another person's sexual activities or nude photos, and then threatens to reveal those unless they get money or sexual favors or some other.
Ding, 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 ding. You are right on that. Let me come right back to you.
Yeah, and then it's similar to revenge porn.
Yes, yes. Sextortion describes a crime that happens online when an adult convinces a person who is younger than 18 to share sexual pictures or perform sexual acts on webcam. Why do you need to know this? Because many times perpetrators will say, if you don't do this or if you don't do that, then I'm going to share. I'm going to share with your friends. I'm going to share with your parents. I'm going to share at your school. This is how, once again, that threat comes in from perpetrators. And many times kids feel like, I got to do this because I don't want other people to see this. Many times a perpetrator may say, well, I have all this information and now I need to meet you. Kid may say, I don't want to, but then that threat comes in. And so then a kid will end up going to meet their perpetrator. Let's see if this is gonna work. I don't know. I don't have the volume. Okay, I'm just gonna go past that. So sextortion threats to expose a sexual image in order to make a person to do something. The big statistic that I want you to see from here is threats are real, and over 45% of the perpetrators carry out their threats. So remember, over 60% of kids are being cyberbullied. 45% of the perpetrators will carry out threats. So what are some of the signs of grooming or luring on the internet that you need to know about? Any type of secrecy, especially about screen time. If they're turning over devices or slamming things down, That's your opportunity to ask what's going on. If they have unexplained new gifts that you did not buy them or no one from the family bought, that is another telltale sign. I had a middle schooler, the family resource coordinator called me and she said, I just don't know about this, but I have a little girl, I think she was in 7th grade, and the family resource coordinator knew the family pretty well, but this little girl was coming in with her hair done quite often, brand new shoes, clothes all the time. And come to find out, her perpetrator was her uncle's friend. So just be on the notice for some of those types of things. If they have a lot of new contacts, or if you experience any type of risky or edgy behavior, if they have a knowledge of sex that is not age appropriate for them to know. So if you have 4th and 5th graders and they're being extensive about sexual acts, that's just a telltale sign. It's a warning sign. Let me be clear. Does not mean anything has happened, but it is your opportunity to engage and have conversation. If they also become distant from friends and family, and there are changes in their mood, especially after being online. As many as 43% of children have spoken to a stranger online. Almost 90% of all sexual approaches to young people are carried out in chat rooms or messaging apps. Also, if your kiddos have any type of gaming systems, PS2, Nintendo, all of that, there's all chat features in all of those. So one of the things, again, while we say have kids in open spaces, open areas, so that you can hear what's going on. Because they, when I played my little video games, where was my component? I think I've dated myself, so you all should know this. Sitting right next to me. But in today's world, they can play with anyone across the country, which means that they can talk to anyone across the country, which means they don't know half of these people. And that's why we have to have these conversations. So one of the things that I had mentioned was digital footprinting. And I said, nothing ever goes away. It's all traceable and trackable. Anything that we do in electric space, someone is tracking that information. So we always tell the kids, and I'm also going to share with adults, be careful what you share, where you share, with whom you share. Now, I saw a lot of hands go up about Facebook. And I've seen some people say, yes, I have kids or grandkids. And I know how we as adults, we love just gushing over our kids, right? Putting their pictures on Facebook. Oh, my baby, she just made the cheerleading team. Or my little boy, he just got on the soccer team. And what do? We take a picture in their uniform in front of school buildings. We're dropping nuggets for perpetrators. Perpetrators build nuggets, collect nuggets, and build a profile of a child. So think about when you're taking pictures of young kids, try to have no identifying marks, where I cannot be able to tell if a kid went to King Elementary, or if they are on the J-Town soccer team or anything of that nature. That's what perpetrators do. They build profiles. So example, if I was to take a picture right now, you have no idea where I'm at because there's nothing back here. So as adults, just be mindful about even the pictures that you're taking and what you're posting on there as well. And then be smart about the sites you visit, emails you open, and then also the links that you may click. The other thing that I failed to talk about was online challenges. I'm gonna get you, Ashley. Online challenges. This has been also an uptick of online challenges. How many of you all knew about the Momo challenge? How many of you all knew about the Tide Pod challenge? The Penny challenge. There's challenges and challenges and challenges that are not safe for kids at all. Once again, when we find out about a certain challenge, what we do is that we will send that information to our partners in JCPS and say, hey, we just want to make you aware this challenge is happening. The Momo challenge, if you didn't know, it was like this scary face that would pop up, and it would actually convince kids to do self-harm to themselves. So once again, we need to be caught up on challenges. The other thing we want to make sure, all of us have cell phones. Kids have cell phones. They have location devices. How many of y'all have ever looked and see their location? See where they're going? Oh, yes, one person? Okay. I would really encourage you all to take your kid's phone one day, go into settings, and look at their location and see where they've been. Everything is trackable. It'll show you everything. But when we're posting, we want to make sure that we're not giving away locations. We want to make sure that we're not hashtagging and, once again, providing photos that have a lot of identifying markers. And then also be careful of friends that are posting pictures as well. This is my own personal, but I really, really despise parents that post their babies nude. It just sends out a wrong message, and you just don't know who's looking at that and who is eventually trying to build profiles on your kiddo, or if nothing else, know where you exactly live, because we can find that too through geomapping. So I'm gonna talk about one specific app, but remember there are thousands of apps. But how does this all work with our apps? So we mentioned TikTok. And we've seen TikTok. It's been at the national, the president, we want to ban TikTok and we want to do all these things. And I get all of that. But some of the things that we need to talk about once again is that it's okay to use these apps as long as we are providing the safe and security around the app that our kids are utilizing, and we're going back and monitoring. So we want to talk about the online content, privacy settings, restricted modes, learn how to report and block, and then also moderate screen time. So how do perpetrators use TikTok? So how many of y'all have been on vacation this year? Nobody? Okay. I was like, whew, somebody needs to give y'all some vacations. We're all midway through the summer. And when you was looking for your vacation, you go into Google and you look for a hotel, right? Okay, you're looking for a hotel, may not find it on that day. And then the next day you go back, it's all these hotel ads, right? And you're like, wait, I didn't even go to, how did this happen? Well, it's all about algorithms. And it's a way to, once again, create a profile about who you are, where you like to go, what you like to see, what you like to buy, and all those things. So pedophiles take full advantage of the feature using to curate an ever-growing collection of their favorite young singers. So if a perpetrator is online and they see one little girl that likes Beyonce, he's going to click on that. And then he's going to see all the other little girls that like Beyonce and start creating files. So that's how that is done. Remember, I talked about empathy. A lot of our kids are being exposed to violent content. A lot of violent content where there's a lot of shooting and killing. Once again, a lot of our kids don't understand that that is not reality. There's a disconnect between what is real and what's not real right now. Because in a game, you may have 5 lives. And then you may lose your 5 lives, and the next day, whoop, I'm here again. Well, in the real world, it doesn't work like that. So one of the things that I was really proud about with one of our community partners is when we had the mass shooting at Old National Bank. Remember, I said kids are exposed to all this information as well. They put out actually some tips how to talk to your kids about violence, how to talk to them about violent exposure. And I thought that was, head on the nail, because our kids are absorbing this information, but sometimes they don't know what to do with it. Does that make sense? And so when they are exposed to violent content, we want to help kids to express their feelings. We want to make sure that kids tap into empathy, that they really feel something, that they know that someone really may have lost their life, or how it may impact that family or impact another child, and remind them that real violence is not a joke. Like, people don't automatically come back to life. And then teach positive conflict resolution, and then also explain what are the consequences. And then the other thing that we have noticed is that there is a high percentage of exposure to pornographic images. Now, not all the time are kids going to look for this. Sometimes it comes to them. Because if you Google and you may mistype one letter in a word, it can take you else place. But we have seen where kids are being exposed more and more to pornographic images. And so, because of that, our schools have told us we're having a real challenge with our kids understanding what healthy relationships look like and what unhealthy relationships look like, because they're getting it from the internet. So now we go into the schools and we help kids to identify what does healthy and unhealthy relationships look like. The one thing that I want you all to know is that if a kid brings to you, because remember, it's a safe space when they talk to you about the internet and what they find or what comes to them, we don't want to overreact. That's the quickest, best way to shut a kid down, is if we overreact. Oh my God, what are you doing? We don't want to overreact, because we want to know the story. We want to know where it came from. So we want to have a discussion with them, and then we want to find out how it happened, and then we want to try to prevent it from ever happening again, and then try to make a plan so that it does not. So if your kids have seen any type of, been exposed to any type of inappropriate content, it may be confusing to them, because remember I said sometimes they have a lot of stuff is coming to them, but they don't know how to process it. You may start to see physical or psychological effects like bedwetting, sleeping issues, nightmares, aggression, withdrawal from friends, family, and activities, high anxiety, and then often referencing age inappropriate topics. So some of the parental apps that are up here, and of course you can Google and you can see what works for you. One that I have heard a lot about is Bark, and also Life 360, Net Nanny. But there are some apps that you can actually help to monitor the activity that our activity behavior that our kids are doing in the digital spaces. And last but not least, once again, I'm gonna date myself, but that's okay. How many of y'all grew up on Pig Latin? Yeah, yeah. Nobody really wants to raise their hand on that, because that dates us like, yeah, like well, I wasn't ever good at Pig Latin, right? I don't catch hints or tips or anything. I'm like, just tell me what it is. Like, I can't decode everything. But realize that our kids decode, that they code. And they have a lot of coding for things because they do not want us to know. So a lot of times texting, because they are like brilliant texters. I'm still like this, and they're like this. They've already had 2 or 3 paragraphs, and I'm still on my first sentence. So if we happen to look and see something that is unfamiliar, know that they do talk in codes. Some of the codes that I want you just to kind of know, and this is going to be in your booklet, bam, 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 in the back of your booklet, but GYPO. Who knows that one?
I just read it,
Yeah, shout it out to me.
Get your pants off.
Get your pants off. What about MOS? Mom over shoulder. Hey, all of you got a cheat guide right here. Cheat guide. What about 420? Yeah, the adults always get that one. All the other ones you all never get. KMS. That is kill myself. So once again, you see the importance of us having conversations with our kids and how they try to code things so that we do not know. If at any time that you're looking for anything or you're like, I don't know what that means, you can always go to Urban Dictionary as well. It's a great tool for a lot of lingo type of stuff. So if kids are like, and you're like, what does that mean? Go to Urban Dictionary. You will learn a lot. Now, there was a question that someone said about, where do I report this if I do find this? So just like with CPS, there is a reporting number. There is a such thing called the Cyber Tip Line, which is managed and operated through the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. So you have that number there. It's also in your booklet. A couple of other resources that I had mentioned, just so that you all can write this down: commonsensemedia.org. The actual website to National Center for Missing and Exploited Children is going to be missingkids.org. And someone asked me, and then also write down takeitdown.org. Someone asked me, what are the trends that are happening? So fortunately enough, I actually sat on a panel talking about the opioid activity in Kentucky. And they specifically brought me on board to talk about how does it affect children or households. And so one of the trends that we have seen is that with fentanyl is the rainbow candy. Y'all have heard of that? The rainbow candy. How many of y'all have not heard about rainbow candy? Okay. So rainbow candy, basically what it is, let's say you like Skittles. You like Skittles? Okay. So Skittles, comes in a lot of different colors and flavors and all that type of stuff. What drug producers are doing is that they are creating fentanyl pills that resemble candy like you would get out of the store. So once again, when it comes with kids, it's going to be hard for them to differentiate what is the real Skittles and then what is kind of like the laced Skittles. In the past year, in Louisville, we have seen, I think I have read at least about 3 to 4 news articles where kids have actually taken mom or dad's candy and shared it with their peers, and then they're ending up calling the EMS because it's affecting the kids. So at this point, really what my recommendation for kids is don't take candy from anyone. It can't be from your friends. It can't be, if it's not wrapped from a package, then don't take that. But that is one conversation really to start having with kids is about the rainbow candy, because it is a trick, and a lot of kids are being tricked by that and taking that, and then also having a lot of health issues. So before I close out, we are a nonprofit organization, and we do have some wonderful funders that allow us to be able to do what we do. They are all listed here. And with that, I'm gonna just kind of open up this time for you all to ask me any questions. How you feel now? A little overwhelmed by all this? Yes? No? All right, well, that is all that I have for today. The only thing that I will ask is that you all have a survey, and if you all would fill that out for me, please, and then just kind of slide it down to the end of the table.
And we had a sign up sheet or a sign-in sheet. Okay.
All right, well, thank you all so much, and thank you, Mr. Sparrow, so much for inviting Echo here. Appreciate it.
Okay, I believe our lunches are here, so I'm gonna ask that everyone would go get their lunches. They should be back around the corner here. Please be quick and back to our seats. We're gonna try to get things somewhat back in.